Now?
Hey! We're in business. Hey there, Mom, Oregon's Constant Gardner with Scott. It's the OCGFAM show. Not viewer questions. We're just going to dive right in. We just did this a second ago, and we were just like speaking. You couldn't hear a thing. What's going on?
It's not working.
It's not working for you?
No, it's working for my truck driver's not thinking very smart.
So it looks like you're not in your office.
No, I'm heading over to the soil yard to do some video speaking of the number 4 being made up.
Well, to that end, wouldn't you say that the soil is the most important not product in the line?
It is. Yeah, I mean, the foundation of anything is going to be your most important thing, right?
Yeah.
So the potting soil you choose for your run is kind of important. See how it's all going to pan out for you, and how to actually do your feedings and how to water, and getting to know the potting mediums is ideal.
So how long were you doing Nectar? What do you got going there?
There?
Yes.
We'll walk through that. That's our
You're watering your dirt.
Cocoa fiber being washed.
Okay. So how long were you doing Nectar bottle nutrients before you actually started selling soil en masse to the public across the nation?
I mean, we've been producing soils for about 14 years.
But you weren't like actually selling it all over though.
No, I mean, not until we hit distribution with Bloomington Wholesale that we started actually offering it nationwide. But once they picked it up and it became a nationwide product, so about, 8-9 years ago. But we've been producing for the Pacific Northwest our potting soils since we started. Originally we were having somebody else blend it for us, but, it's all changed. If you're not doing it yourself, then you really don't have the control or the consistency, and all it took one to really become a problem for a grower, which then, kind of sparked us to get our own facility, start bagging plant, our own mixing plant, and just making sure we're doing it by ourselves, too, or for ourselves. Because, the private labeling other people's brands or the soils from different companies who produce, you really just don't know what's on their lot, what they're using as far as material, the quality of the material they choose. It's all over the place. And, what we're seeing is, we buy in large volumes. We do a lot of manufacturing, but we're seeing the prices of soil that are either extremely affordable, which tells me there's a lot of filler product in there, a lot of compost, a lot of forest byproducts, things that they can add into a medium without putting a ton of expense in. Ours has never changed. The only thing that's ever changed on our product is the source of our peat moss, and only because at one point the peat moss became so inconsistent, so acidic, and the consistency changed, and it was the Canadian peat we were having issues with. So until we found the Lithuanian peat, which is more of a virgin peat, the way this company, Klausman, harvest their peat moss, it's very, all the peat moss harvesting practices, theirs is the closest to sustainable. I mean, they plant behind them, they peel off the top layer, they take out, 2 to 3 feet below it, but they lay the peat bog back on top, so there's always active rooting peat
growing back in,
living in the places where they're harvesting. And their property, I mean, what they're harvesting is from, a few 100,000 acres. So they literally have this capability of making a pass before they even get to the beginning of the first starting point. They find that their peat is already rooted back in, starting to grow, starting to regenerate. We know peat takes thousands of years to actually, build up and decompose. But when you're looking at these vast fields through Lithuania and Northern Europe, there's acres and acres and acres of untouched peat that are just being carefully harvested for the industry.
Well, I suppose this is much like, you know, a sapling forest versus an old growth forest, that once it's so big, it's got some momentum going, that it reconstitutes itself much more quickly than if you're starting from digging down to the rock and trying to start over again.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, that's all peat is. It's just, you know, 20 feet of spongy organic matter that's been decomposing for thousands of years. So instead of just going straight down and harvesting it right to the core all the way down, they just peel it back layer by layer by layer over year after year after year. They've been the most consistent, the cleanest, the most so it's not super acidic. You know, we just find that for all growing conditions, it's so similar to corn fiber, and it's the way it looks, the way it feels, the way it acts, that when we blend it with our core fiber, you know, it looks and feels like a core-only soil when it really still has that organic acid that come out of peat that are beneficial to microbes and plants. It's a great environment for a lot of your mycorrhizal fungi. So, you know, we've continued to keep the core fiber the peat moss in, strictly because it is such a beneficial organic acid in the soil.
So how does the soil fit in with the rest of the line? How do you see Nectar for the Gods? What do you see your company as producing? Does that make any sense? Like,
not at all.
You've got all these nutrients, is what I think people kind of think. It's what when I came out there, you know, I hadn't talked to you for a long time. We kind of reconnected. I come out there and I see all these big vats of stuff, and I think, oh, this guy grows stuff you pour on plants to make them grow. But there's much more to it than that, and I don't think that people think about, or I'm not sure that even I got for a long time, how the soil fits in with the bottled nutrients in growing cannabis.
Well, I mean, 1,000 ways to skin the cat, Bob. So the downfall, you know, so many people will do hydroponics. They'll do a soilless medium like a cocoa fiber or a rock wool style. You know, it really comes down to the style of growing you like or you intend to do. We prefer top-fed soils and soilless mediums like a core fiber. The bottled nutrients really are the control. I mean, they're what give the grower that confidence to know that they're filling the needs of what that plant needs via what we have digested in the bottle. The potting soil you choose really balances off of what you're going to use in the bottle form, because if you choose the wrong potting soils, a lot of times the additives in those potting soils will actually counteract to the products that we're putting in our bottles. So when you're buying a number 4 or the 4-shot or the number 8 soil from us, you can feel pretty confident that we've designed our potting soils to work what we actually put in our bottles. So when you're putting those two together, you know, we're really focusing on the nutrients in the bottles to really control the plant's growth, flowering, development, all the benefits of the plant. Meanwhile, we also know we have the right reserves in our soil to not overfeed, to come up when it's needed, to have the bacteria field there that we want, the mycorrhiza field that we're looking for. You know, so our number 4 soil was originally designed to work just with our bottles, so you wouldn't have any problems when you're growing. And, you know, they work symbiotically, and we add the limestone to the number 4 to make sure that when you're feeding our bottles, there's a balance of pH, there's a balance of alkalinity. You know, from all of that, it's helped us stem to different types of potting mixes that have increased alkalinity, have increased the different forms of, you know, diatomaceous earth and silicone and, you know, all the things that make a better potting mix have stemmed from the number 4. But at the end of the day, number 4, the Spartan or the Greek regimen, is really what we designed our whole company around.
So, in this industry, in this growing this plant, is hydroponics the norm?
I wouldn't say the norm, but it's definitely I think a lot of guys like hydroponics for speed, control, the ability to automate, the walk away, the set it and forget it, Bronco Peel style of garden. But I think the connoisseurs, the outdoor organic gardeners and farmers, they prefer running more of this soil type gardens because they're used to it, they understand it. They know how to push it. They know how to work with it. And at the end of the day, I think a lot of people can speak to this, and more soil growers than hydro guys will, but the depth of the fruit, the depth of the taste, you get another layer in this plant that comes from naturally grown soil rather than trying to mimic every piece of the soil that is available to a plant in a hydroponic setting. Because in hydroponics, you're 100% the nutrient guru. If you're not giving it, they can't access it, and there's no way they can find it unless you've introduced it. In potting soil, there's a whole slew of elements and minerals and components that bacteria and mycorrhiza and all your microbes are finding that create a really interesting nuance of availability of the plant. And I think that carries out in the final product. So I think it just comes down to gardening styles where people really choose whether or not they want to go soil or hydroponic.
Well,
and honestly, soil is far more forgiving in the sense of if you mess up one day with soil, you can kind of give it a few days of correction time, where in hydroponics, your timer goes out in the middle of the night and your lights are on and it's hot. You could come into a cooked out room the next day, where at least potting soil's got a built-in reserve and a buffer to kind of protect you from losing it.
Did a lot of people grow with this way, hydroponics, because they were literally growing underground? And it became a momentous kind of thing of like, that's how we do it, that's how we have to do it, and now that we don't have to do it, maybe, am I wrong about that?
No, I think it really came down to speed and convenience. And, big yields, you can pump these plants full of NPK, you can, underground, it seemed like it'd be even harder to be a black market hydroponic guy in the 80s, where you're bringing bucket systems in your shipping container buried 12 feet underground, and the water being liquid. So, I think it just comes down to, or maybe they took a trip to Epcot and went, hey, well, Epcot's in this, I say we all do it.
Well, I was saying that because, I don't know if you ever heard people say hydroponic tomatoes, like they're good,
Yeah, like they're good, but then they're like, yeah, it was a fan. Hydroponic tomatoes don't really have the flavor that soil-grown, calcium-loaded tomatoes.
It's the idea of it they tried to sell. I saw Anthony Bourdain talking about, in Italy, people look forward to that 1 month of the year when you have tomatoes. They don't expect tomatoes all year round. They're like, that 1 month when they're ripe and we have tomatoes, holy moly, they're so good. But I think that people have tried to get us to accept so that they can grow it year round and they can grow it en masse and they can grow it easily.
Oh yeah, that definitely warrants the benefits of hydroponics, is the ability to small space pump out, especially tomatoes, peppers. You can really crank out a lot of food, but honestly, the best I've ever tasted in hydroponics that I prefer in hydroponics over soil would be lettuce. Outside of that, I think any soil-borne tastes it has a deeper, more well-rounded flavor profile. Lettuce just brings out a sweetness in hydroponics for some reason. So I love hydroponic lettuce, but it can be a less valued crop. So
lettuce is like the paper, and everything else is the ink that you put on it, the paint you put on it, kind of. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And as long as the paper does.
You don't want it to have a lot of flavor. So. Well, so what you drove over there? What do you want to talk about?
Well, I was heading over here to check out some stuff, but I figured since we're doing this little Q&A, we should just do a quick walkthrough, kind of show the whole process, what these guys really do. Take a look at our yard out here that literally is just, we can focus on what we put in our soils and what's not in our soils, and what's not in our soils comes from over in that mill over there. You can see it.
Yeah.
That's a giant lumber mill, and a lot of people in our industry, a lot of companies, they will use a composted bark or a composted tree loam.
Just something that they can.
In the realm of.
Sorry.
Yeah. So basically, forest byproducts often come in the form of sawdust, the unusable part for a mill, and for a lot of nursery plants, a lot of native conifers and deciduous maples and stuff, they really like that type of tannin. They like that breaking down the carbon, the raw wood. But to us, it's a very affordable, cheap filler that puts in the mass. But to us, it kind of steals from plant growth.
I got
So
you.
we made a very conscious effort at the very beginning of this whole game that we weren't gonna make a bark-based soil. We weren't going to put cheap fillers in. I'm gonna walk out there.
Okay.
I'm gonna set my alarm. Stay.
Pissed.
My car alarm. So it's just making sure our raw materials that we're putting in, we're going to stay consistent, and there weren't going to be fillers. Like this. This is our core fiber being washed as we speak.
So, dumb question, why do you wash it?
Well, you know, we asked the same thing. Our core fiber comes from the same family it has for, well, since we started. So it's Cosmic Core out of India, same family. Consistently, they wash it over there, so it always comes in at 60 parts per million of salt or less. But what we found was when you hydrate core bricks with water, you keep the integrity of the core.
Oh, it's like when you make the yakisoba noodles and you run the warm water over them to kind of loosen them up instead of chopping them up into little chunks.
Yeah, well, if you chop them up, then you end up with a bunch of tiny yucky pieces of yakisoba. Well, most companies will take these bricks, stick them through a chipper, and literally dust them, then they mist it with a bar of water. The misting bar then hydrates or washes the core fiber, and then it goes right in the mix. And that's not washing it. And so when we get done with this, it'll be under 20 parts per million.
Okay,
it'll
so
be completely washed out and hydrated. We won't have to chip it at all. And then we just bring it over here, and we actually squeeze our core fiber out of moisture. You know, we've tried piling it up like this.
Okay,
Pile up core fiber. You'd think that gravity would drag all this water out. It doesn't.
No.
It'll hold on to that water for a year.
Well, isn't that the job of it when it's on the plant? to hold water?
What's that?
It's kind of the job of that stuff to hold water, right? I mean...
It is. It's great water hold, and it lets the drainage go freely. But it won't release it until a plant actually sucks it out. So we actually have to physically put it through one of these machines here, which is a giant orange juice press.
So it's just slowly going through there, and then that's like squeezing it like you squeeze a lemon.
What?
It's like you squeeze a lemon and the juice comes out. You're just actually squeezing it.
Yeah. This is a giant press.
Oh, wow.
Coming out dry.
Is this some kind of impellers in there, or is there actually two things squeezing against each other? How does it? Or is it a secret?
There or something over here. So what was that?
Is it actually? It's actually physically squeezing it together to make the water come out.
It's a giant hydraulic plate pressing against an auger that's grinding or pushing in this core fiber against the plate, and then it releases all the water and sends it up into a tube. So that washes the core. Now this is the peat bale shaver.
Okay.
They take one of those giant peat bales there, unwrap it, stick it in here. This floor lifts up and it shreds it all, and that takes the peat moss up that ramp into the bin. I'll show you over there.
So you moved that. That used to be over in the other thing. You've made it more of an assembly line a little bit, it looks like. Wasn't that over in another house?
What?
Wasn't that shredder over on the other side there for a while?
Yeah. Yeah, and then we fired that guy and brought it to where it made more sense.
Okay. Efficiencies.
What I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to just walk through the quick procedure here.
Okay, I'm going to shut up then.
Hear a thing you're saying. All these machines are running around, so I'm just going to do a quick walkthrough, and then we'll talk about it when I get on the other side. You'll hear my words while we're doing this, so you can kind of see what's going on.
All right.
All right. Well, let me get this clean. Apparently I need a new phone because the front lens is terrible. That's the peak. That's the washed core fiber. And it's been dried, so there's no more moisture in from it. So now it's ready for mix, and we have the right amount of moisture content in that. This is the pumice that we get from Eastern Oregon. This is volcanic rock that's been expanded from natural sources of heat. So that's one of our forms of perlite, if you will. That's our perlite bed. Keep it really small because we don't want a lot of it floating around or in the air. You guys have to wear a mask when they're doing that stuff. Perlite's not fun to breathe. It's a bunch of slackers. Oh no, this guy, that's the soil team right there. All right, this is the bag line. So that's a 4-inch mixer. So as big as the batches we make, and as you can see, we'll make a few different batches at a time when we get super crazy busy. We also have a tote mixer on that side. It does 2 and 3 yard totes. This machine sends it down this belt up there. Then it's going to go through the bagger. We'd rather just hand bag. Now that we bought all the equipment and everything that gives us problems, it's probably more efficient just to hand bag with these guys. All right, this is fun though. So here's the bagger.
Oh, jeez.
Their job sucks. But they stay fit and these are all your customers that are using your number 4 bench. So that's that machine. We also, I'll take you through Perlite. But first, these are the tote blenders here. These are giant 4-yard mixers. This is what they make everything. Everything we make is in a 4-yard batch. So all of our recipes are exactly the same consistency. The one cool thing is, in our totes, we have these irrigation tubes in. You see these holes throughout all the tubes?
Yeah.
I'll take you out in the yard, but what we do is we stick those to fill the soil up around the tube in the tote. This creates oxygen flow through the tote, so your microbial activity, as they're waking up and becoming alive and consuming, the airflow internally allows them to do their job efficiently without overheating and dying. There's a lot of times
the heat.
people will be done with their stuff, take a full pallet of soil like that, wrap it, completely seal it, then stick it outside the sun to then wake up, consume, overheat, and then die. And so we want to make sure all the microbes and stuff that we've added to our potting soils stay alive like this. We have all these little holes that we plug into the bags. These holes are so the microbes can breathe. Then Silvano's going to wrap it with this roofer. All it does is hold the soil to the pallet without shrink wrapping it. And then he'll drive it out there and we'll put a cover over it so that it won't get wet or get soaked with rain. So the microbes have just enough moisture to get going. But they don't overcompost and they don't overeat the food inside. This is a fert room. These are the fert bags. Each bag gets 2 full buckets of this fert mix. I'm mixing those fert mixes right now, and every one of them gets weighed out evenly. So the cool thing is, they're all so consistent, and that being a 4-yard bag, we know that each one of these is getting 2 of these buckets. Then the Q&A guy can stay on top of making sure all those numbers are the same in every bag. When we go to other facilities, we see continuous batches being made, so 90 yards at a time. The fertilizer is being injected during the process, so the first 4 bags can have 20% more than the last 4 bags, or vice versa.
Wow.
So us sticking small really makes sure that the consistency of the product stays the same from bag to bag, pallet to pallet, batch to batch. Some of the ingredients are from, chromium, paramagnetic rock. Here's that. This paramagnetic sand. You got meal. You got green or oyster shell. Lots of oatmeal. And lots of lime. Lots of lime. So, takes a lot of labor and a lot of passion, I guess. Get out of here.
Tell me when you can hear again. I got a question.
I can hear you right now.
It seems like you've made a lot of changes to make it maybe more efficient, but definitely more consistent even still, like with moving the machines around a little bit. And also, I remember when I was there last time, they would be shoveling like crazy to make those little buckets as you were building it out instead of doing it beforehand. So you guys have been working on refining the process even still.
Yeah, it's just streamlining the process to make sure it makes sense, and that way, we try not to have a ton of labor here. We try not to have a ton of people standing around. So all these guys have 2 to 3 jobs each. So they've really learned how to streamline the whole package. That and then taking a lot of the physical labor out of some of these jobs so that they don't hurt themselves. They're not good to us if they're broken, and it's not good for them if they're broken. So, getting the tools you need to make sure that they can do the job efficiently and the right way without harming themselves is kind of our mission. We're not a soil company. We make fertilizers in a kick-ass potting mix for people who use our stuff. A lot of people just want to be a soil company. I don't want to be a soil company.
It seems like they're going a lot slower and working a lot faster, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, they are. And, this is the beginning of the season, so right now the goal is consistency, build and ramp back up into the production process, and don't overdo it right now because, all we're trying to do is refill up our yard for spring. And then once spring hits, then the yard just starts emptying. So we don't have any massive orders that need to go out today. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I gotcha.
But we feel the 1,000-yard orders starting to pile in, or at least being inquired about. Bird housing. I'm just getting away from these guys so I can talk again.
I gotcha. So all the production is under the shed now, it looks like.
Oh yeah, no, all production's under and covered. We store out here, so like back in that yard, we have all of our bulk totes. That's where our backup peat is from Flossman. These are that's just 4-shot. See those totes back here?
What happened to the house, the big house back there?
What's that?
Big hoop house back there, looks like it's gone.
Yeah, the snow took that one.
Oh, jeez.
2. That was an expensive winter. Yeah. No, these are, so now we're just doing shipping containers for stuff. That's when we stage the order. So when we know there's a truck order coming, we pre-stage them there. We know that they're going to weigh out. We know they're going to fit. Then that's our loading bay. All those are bulk totes for farms. So that's what they're going to be building up this week.
Okay.
Right now, it's just trying to get enough perlite in is kind of a bear. But you can see how all those have that weird pokey on top?
Yeah, I see it.
Those are the tubes to make sure that the soil's breathing. And then over here is each one's in their own land. So there's number 4, there's 4 shot, way at the end. So they keep it all separated so when the trucks come in, they know how to pick. But as you can see, we're kind of empty right now.
Yeah.
So we've been working full time getting back up to our inventory lots. But as you can tell, we're fine with Flossman and core fiber, and we know when to buy and how to buy. So we think we're going to be okay for the season, or at least until July or August. We'll see what happens to trucking and shipping.
Yeah.
Right now, we're still waiting on 4 boats of peat moss from November that still hasn't landed. We were told the last they heard they were actually transferring the peat from a container ship to a barge outside of SeaTac to bring it in. It's been out there for 4.5 months.
Jeez.
So we have 4 containers on that ship. We've got 12 more coming. It's just it's a hurry up and wait kind of year, I guess.
So there's just a crew of a ship just sitting out there, just sitting out there.
Yeah, times 250
God.
on the coast, apparently. I mean,
can you imagine?
Yeah, the shipping shortages are pretty real, and I don't think a lot of people understand the port problems are very real. And as somebody who brings in just 2 things from off of our country, we only bring in core fiber and peat moss. It's the only 2 things we use that don't come from the U.S. And look at us. We're getting screwed just on the 2 products that we have to import. Everything else, no problem. We got plenty of it. We're American-made with American products. So all of our liquids come from the U.S. Everything we digest comes from the U.S. It's just the best core fiber we can find, and the best peat moss come from countries.
And those are just not conducive to a growing in our agriculture, right? Or our area?
That's it. I mean, it's nothing you can do. I mean, America isn't rich in peat, and they certainly don't have enough coconuts in Florida to warrant a core fiber company. India is rich in them, and Lithuania has hundreds of thousands of acres of peat that are just sitting there. But yeah, as you can see, nobody's pulling up compost from like that. See a big pile of debris right there? That's a lot of companies potting so waiting to be made.
Well, and if you were to be able to, as the crow flies go a couple 500 yards, you'd get to the place where all the yard debris is dumped, right? That's probably.
Well, I know when people go, why is yours so expensive? I can get this for this price. I can make it for that price, but I don't want to.
Yeah.
So we just choose not to make a soil that we wouldn't want to plant in. If we're not going to plant in it, we're certainly not going to make it for profit just to see if we can sell more of it to the outdoor growers. A lot of outdoor growers have used cheap soils before, and they usually end up buying our soil the next year, and we don't even have to sell ours. We don't have to upsell people when they see what happens.
I don't think a lot of people think of soil as an investment. And like that you get that soil, you're not going to use that soil and then throw it away. It may cost you a bunch of money to get that soil shipped to you, but you're going to use that soil for some time. Am I right about that? Or
I would say so. I mean, if you went out and bought yourself a brand new Ferrari, are you going to put it in a cardboard box? Because I wouldn't. I mean, I'd probably build a pretty serious fortified garage around my Ferrari. Same concept. When I'm using a high-dollar crop or growing a high-dollar crop, I don't want to rely on a very cheap medium to get me to the end. You can use really cheap mediums like cocoa fiber by itself and perlite, super cheap. Now you have to really know what you're doing with bottles to get you all the way to the end of a crop successfully with a good yield.
Yeah.
So it's whatever your foundation is what you're going to turn out in the long run. we don't make cheap potting soils yet. We've yet to even raise our price on potting soil, so I still think we make a cheap potting soil in the grand scheme of the main cost.
Yeah.
But we're not going to ever apologize for making a consistent, clean, no byproduct potting mix for the masses. So I already don't.
Nice. Okay. Is that?
The P. That's all P. That's a mega
Name a P.
That's a Silvano drawing. Probably it's me and my dog.
That's great.
Yeah. So the main difference between our blends is the number 8 and the number 4 are the same. It's just the amount of perlite. The number 8 is grander, so you get a little bit better drainage out of the number 8 for guys who need to feed more. The number 2 is just simply a Coco Pearlite mix, 50-50 for speed feeding and synthetic growers that want to feed hydroponically. And then we came out with that 4 shot, which we'll go in way more depth than that down the road.
Yeah.
I want to get a few episodes of Medusa, Gaia, Zeus, Hurricane, then come back to 4 shot to kind of discuss what that's all about for folks. You know, it's turning some heads and making a big difference for a lot of growers. But it's really basically just our number 4 that we added a lot of 1 shot to, a lot of this Axis Perlite to, better drainage, higher microbial package, and we're just seeing a much better all-in-one start-to-finish potting soil that people can use as like just a water only. We still recommend topping it off with a little extra 1 shot and pouring, or adding some couple of the bottles just to get you a better kick or a punch in the flower. But if you're blind or you're in a wheelchair or you're handicapped or you're in a bad spot where you can't physically do all the bottles, the 4 shot is a nice mix to just add water and sprinkle 1 shot on one time in the end and really just get a nice crop out of it.
What's the difference between perlite and pumice, and why wouldn't I just use perlite or just use pumice? Why would I mix them?
Good question. So perlite and pumice are virtually the same thing. It's really the mineral is the different, and the mineral has no weight on the conversation. What it is pumice. Well, perlite is like tiny little river rock, like gravel stone, if you will. It's a tiny little stone that the way to get it to be perlite, you got a ton of natural gas, and you got to pop it like corn, which turns all those little tiny rocks, river rocks, into puffed stone. Well, God did the same thing. It was called a volcano, and he made a giant vat of mega pumice or perlite by popping all of the lava rock into a pumice.
As it gets thrown up into the air superheated, it turns into little pumices. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So why aren't they the same?
If freight wasn't an issue, we'd only use pumice. We find pumice to be far superior because it has a higher mineral content. It has more natural silicates in it from the explosion of the earth. It's got a big coarse structure for drainage and keeping the medium balance. It doesn't float to the surface like perlite does. The downfall, it weighs. And when it comes out of eastern Oregon in the winter, it comes with ice and snow and water. So then you have to thaw it. I mean, it's a real big pain in the butt to work with. What we found is when we do a full pallet of just pumice, our pallets weigh about 2,700 pounds, and the limit for shipping are about 2,200 pounds.
You can't do it.
Also, now you're peeling 5 to 10 bags off of every pallet because it's the only way you can afford to put that much weight on there. Perlite helps us take half that pumice weight out while still having the drainage in there, and then get the full pallet count on there with the 60 bag. So, and there's a benefit to both, but I would say I personally like pumice more. You just can't put enough on a pallet.
Would you fortify your soil with pumice as time goes on? Because I know you get all the perlite just rolls to the top. A lot of times you kind of, shake that off. Would you put pumice into your soil as you go? If you're taking a bag of soil and you're going to keep that for the next 4 or 5 years?
the nice thing about pumice too is it doesn't really go away. So
Yeah.
once you add it into an outdoor garden for drainage or for whatever you're using it for, you don't have to keep re-amending it. It's a once and done kind of situation. And it's cheap. Most of your garden, like municipal compost companies around here, we have Lane Forest and Rexius. A lot of people just have, Bob's bulk soil.
Yeah.
They'll sell pumice by the scoop. Around here it's $5 for a bucket, so it's super cheap to just add some in your landscape soils for drainage, mycorrhizal living, bacteria housing. But once you add it once, it's nothing you ever have to do again.
And if you're back on the East Coast where they don't have so many volcanoes, can you still get pumice back there, or is it more rare and expensive back there?
Oh, I'm sure you can. I'm sure you're going to be paying a bit higher of a premium because it's probably shipped from somewhere out west. So, yeah, depending on where you're at, and out there they've got something similar with gypsum and things, but you have to see what you have available to you. That's inert, that doesn't have a high pH or a high magnesium content or a sulfur content. Just something that's just blown rock.
I don't think if you're from back east, before when you came out here and you saw a lava flow, were you just like blown away by that? They're just like
that's pretty cool. Like going up to your sisters and there's those trails that you can follow, like where lava actually wiped out entire forests, and you just go, this is crazy. You've seen a swath of land
still gone thousands of years later. Crazy.
Oh yeah, still nothing. Like one tree growing out, you're like. Survival, baby.
Well, cool.
Yeah, I think that covers number 4 soil. I think what we're going to try to do is do a viewer question every week. We'd love to maybe follow up in the next week after this has been playing for a little while, see what kind of questions this generates about potting soil. Then we'll start with, Medusa's Magic or Gaia Mania as the first liquid product intro. But this will give our customer, our viewers really, a chance to kind of see our facility, come up with any questions they may have about our facility, what they saw here today. We'd love to come back and give them a couple more, close-ups on what's going on. Maybe I can come during a break when it's a little quieter, talk to the employees.
Okay.
But yeah, feel free to ask questions, point out things, show us what do you want to see from us. And then the next episode, we'll start on the liquids for a little while, and then we'll come back and do more soil.
That sounds great. That's a show.
Not bad.
All right. Thanks. The OCG Fam Show was pretty good. It happens every day. It's the OCG Fam Show. See you tomorrow.